8 p.m. on TB1.
Step away from the conventional art of storytelling. Get ready for the Newsfirst Breakfast Rundown with me, Zulfi Farzan.
TV1. TV for life.
Good evening and welcome to Face to Face for the Newsfirst team. I'm Nadeesha. Well, we have 3 weeks to go for general election 2024 and maybe it's time to whip out our crystal balls and try to predict who's going to win and which party is going to get how many seats. And I've brought in a couple of those expert folks who know a lot about politics in order to help us with this this evening. I'm talking about Mr. Kesarralal Gunasekara, former Member of Parliament, and Mr. Nadeesha De Silva, who is an expert political commentator and observer. Welcome to both of you this evening, gentlemen. Welcome back. Gentlemen, so it strikes me that unlike in the presidential election, where people up to the day before they were asking each other, whom are you going to vote for? And a lot of people seemed undecided until the last minute. But this time, 3 weeks to go, and most people are set on whom they're going to vote for. Because I'm hardly hearing this same question. Who are you going to vote for? In fact, I haven't heard it at all this week. So I get the feeling that people are pretty much set on whom they're going to vote for. Am I correct in that, Kesarralal?
To a certain degree, yes, of course. And I think even the last election, although you said till the last minute they were undecided, it was not a question as to whether they should vote for X or Y. They were wondering as to whether their vote for the NPP would be a problem, that's all. So they originally, their intention was to vote for the NPP but then with regard to the publicity that was carried out by the social media and other parties, they were in two minds, that's all. So when it comes to general election, they are decided already, I feel.
Nadeesha, would you agree with that?
Nilesh, we know now this is the fourth time in history of Sri Lanka that we are having a general election after having a presidential election within 9 months. Now we have seen that in 89, 94, 2010, 15, and 19 as well, into 2020 as well. So here we are in a different position. We are in between 3 months time period. So it is obvious that all these past occasions we have seen the party which wins the presidential election won the general election without any issue. It was an easy victory for it was an easy victory in the past. So this is going to be repeated. So that's why we are not seeing that much of a competition. We don't see it in the public as well. Public also, they don't have any interest in even debating on who's going to win, who are you going to vote and all. So that's it.
So you're talking about the four elections that you spoke about. That was when President R. Premadasa was elected, and then the UNP won, and then President Chandrika Kumartunga. And in that instance, it was the other way around, wasn't it? First we had the Parliamentary,
and then the presidential election.
Not 94.
Not 94.
That's 94 was a mistake by me.
Okay.
Not 94. So, 89, 2010, 15 and 19.
Right. So tell us about the other three, 2010.
10, 15 and 19. And the other thing, so we can see now NPP is going to have an easy victory.
You're predicting an easy victory.
I'm predicting an easy victory. It will be an easy victory, and also I'll tell you some facts. In last election, usually what happens after that election, after the when you have the when you have the presidential election, and then you have having the general election, what usually happens is the losing party, the supporters of the losing party, they lose faith, they get frustrated, and many of them, not many, some percentage of them, they are not going to vote even.
So you have a lower turnout for the opposition.
Yes, there will be a lower turnout for the opposition, and also not for the winning party as well. They will also get a lesser voting amount of votes for sure. That's what has happened in the past. Around 5%, 5 to 2%, there will be a lesser number of, the votes what NPP is going to get also will be a little bit less.
Interesting thought,
Yes.
because I've heard a lot of people say that yes, the opposition parties will get a lower number of votes, but haven't heard so much of
because
the
of the
NPP.
enthusiasm is little bit less, right? Now, this is what has happened in the past. It can change. Now, in the last general election, the losing party, they had a loss of 42% in the general election.
Okay, but there is, of course, the aspect of the Northeast vote, but we'll come to that one.
Yeah, we'll come.
Kesarralal, what about your thoughts on this?
Well, the question is, in any case, since this is following a presidential election, the shift would naturally take place from the opposition to the winning party. That would certainly take place. But I will tell you something else also, which I have observed. I feel already the members, the active members, have realized that they are going to walk away with this election. The simple reason is 58 members are not contesting the election. Why did from
58 members of the former parliament,
former parliament
members
is not contesting the election? Why? Because they realize that this is going to be the result. That's the reason why they have kept away. Not for any other reason. They have kept away for the simple reason they feel that they will.
So it's not some altruistic reason where they're saying, okay, let the younger generation have a go at it. No,
These are people who willing to be serve in parliament even till the 85. So they have stepped down. Why? Because they got the message very, very clearly.
Interesting indeed. Now, let's talk about that Northeast vote which you brought up, Nadeesha. So, traditionally, we have had either the UNP or the SJB has garnered much of the Northeast vote in a presidential election. And then when it comes to the general election, much of that vote does not go to the UNP or the SJB. It goes instead to the Tamil political parties. So what is this going to do for the SJP's vote and the UNP's vote this time? Because now if you take the SJB vote base, 4.3 million voters for the presidential election. What about the general election? What's going to happen?
See, in the general election, so we saw that the north and east votes actually in the presidential election, they were divided between Ranil Wickremesinghe and Sajith Premadasa. And it was more likely Sajith Premadasa got the advantage than Ranil Wickremesinghe in the presidential election. So now in the general election, definitely there will be that split. Sajith Premadasa is not going to get that advantage of those votes for himself. So definitely that will affect him in losing lots of votes from that 4.3 million which he received. So that will be the same case which is going to face in the same scenario happened to him in the 2020 as well. He lost a huge number of votes from the Tamil and Muslim communities in North and East.
So, any predictions, Nadeesha, from the 4.3 million votes that he got, which constituted about 32% of the overall voting population? What's the prediction?
That will be the same proportion, I think. Like if you think about the last time, it was out of 5.5 million he got. Finally, he ended up with 2.7 million, right? So same proportional rate will have applied in here as well.
So do you think he'll come down to about 2 million votes?
I don't get amazed if it happens.
And that would be what?
2.5 maybe.
So 2 to 2.5 million votes for the SJB, which would of course constitute just a bit over 20%, 20 to 25%, somewhere there. Kesarralal, would you agree with these figures?
Well, the question is not, it's not ethical for me to comment because I've been a politician, etc. And
that was a long time ago.
Yeah, but still, for all
you're not running this time.
I have my ethics, but as I said before, it's going to be a cakewalk for the MPP. But I would not go beyond that and say as to whether this party is going to lose or anything. But then, generally, I can say the other parties, their votes will certainly drop because there will be a shift from their vote bank to the MPP vote bank. There is no question about that.
So,
that's going to happen.
So let me ask you, Kesarralal, the NPP vote, which was about 43%.
Yeah.
How high would it go? 50% or more?
I think so.
Okay.
I certainly think so. It'll be more.
How high? Any guess?
Well, my thinking has right throughout been, we need to clean up the stables this time. This is an ideal opportunity to clean up the stables. To clean up the stables, many of these people have to go home. Many of these people have to be defeated. So I feel that the people will always stand with this theory that if you, in order to clean up the stables, for heaven's sake, get new people in. How do you get new people in? You will have to vote for a particular party. That's the only way.
Nadeesha, we know, of course, that the NPP is fielding fresh candidates. Almost all of them are fresh candidates. There are just a few recognizable names from past elections, but mainly they are names which were unknown, but have become known over the last few months due to their political campaigning. But do we see this in other parties as well, or is it to a lesser extent?
See, in other parties also we are seeing it up to some extent, especially in the UNP base with the cylinder. I've seen they have brought up some new faces, not because that they intend to bring new people in, but the reason, actually the true reason, is that they don't have enough proper candidates to put. So they have given opportunity to youngsters and new people. That we have seen from cylinder side. But SJB, I'm not seeing that much of a difference. Most of the ones who we have seen are still in the picture, and there are some new people as well. But obvious that we have to expect that from a new party like NPP, which they have never been in power. So in the last parliament election, they got only 3 people in. So definitely when they are going to get a majority in this parliament, so definitely we have to accept that there will be all the newcomers in the parliament. That has to happen, right?
Now, if you get 150 newcomers in parliament, what is parliament going to look and feel like? Because we Sri Lankans were used to a circus. I mean, that's putting it mildly. A circus is much better behaved than most of our parliaments, especially the last few. And I'm sure you'll both agree with me. I'm sure most Sri Lankans will agree with me. Parliament was not a place where you could take your children. In fact, very often when things got out of hand, the speaker would first of all say, clear the gallery of all those school children. So the behavior was abysmal. But with the new parliament, what are we likely to see? Because we're likely to see a lot of young people, young members of parliament, many of them from the NPP, many who have not held office even at the Pradesh Sabha level. That's not anybody's fault except the successive governments which have not held the election. So what is the behavior of parliament going to look like? Kesarralal, can I have your thoughts on that?
Well, the question is, I always, this is where I sometimes come out and say, look here, you want to do politics, you must start at the beginning, you must start at the ground level, the Saka Samiti, and then come up that way. But over the period when, this is how we started, we started in the late 70s through that process. But then subsequently, after the 90s, etc., I see people being parachuted to contest elections. These are people who do not even know anything about governance. That will not be the case because most of these people from the NPP would have been there, I feel, in the local authorities. Because if you learn the structure of the local authorities, governance is not that difficult. If you learn. And moreover, as long as the troublemakers are not there, you'll be able to carry on governance in a proper manner. This is what I feel will happen. It's a new culture. I feel it's a new culture that the NPP has introduced into the country, which we all have to agree is in the best direction. They have introduced a new culture. Now it's left for the people to promote that culture. We need to move forward. If you take their politics, most of those instances, many of these people would have tried knock on the door to enter, but they were refused. That's why we are having this situation. Otherwise, many of them would have opted to come up with the NPP. What they would have thought was, okay, whoever was with us for a long period of time, we will carry them through. And it is that reason that prevented the others from infiltrating into the NPP camp. So I feel that most of these people, even if they are new, they'll be able to learn, and somebody will be able to have to guide them as well, have classes, etc. But it will be a better parliament, I feel. No troublemakers. Most of them will be new. You said 150. I feel it will be more than 150 new faces in parliament.
Nadeesha, what do you think of that? A new culture in parliament? Are we asking and hoping for too much?
See, first you told, when you asked the question from Kesarralal, that it's not a place to take your kids. Kesarralal, I believe that the kids in Sri Lanka are every day to day seeing the same thing. This parliament is the mirror image of the Sri Lankan society. Okay, so what we see in the parliament, the language or the type of the way they fight, the arrogance and all these things they are seeing in the society. So this is the true mirror image of the society. According to the democracy, the representative democracy, so we have brought the proper representatives of the society. Okay, so this is what has happened, and now we are expecting for a change of the political culture. By the society being the same, right? We are expecting a culturally, well-mannered parliament by having the same kind of the society, Society will not change. It will be the same until the society changes. The parliament, you will find it for like some time period in a mannered way. But definitely, I mean, the parliament will come to the natural state.
So, so you're saying this August assembly that we are expecting.
Usually refer to it as August Assembly.
Yes, although we used to refer to it as August with a pinch of salt, basically. But this time we're actually expecting an August assembly. But Nadeesha, you don't feel it will last?
It is good that if it lasts. Okay, it is good that if it lasts. Actually, the people of Sri Lanka, the society, they wanted the system change, which was not actually defined what kind of a change that we are expecting. But at least we are seeing that NPP is trying to give that change to the community. But we are not seeing any positive from any of the other sides, because they are still in the same boat, okay, trying to manipulate the scenarios and trying to get the opportunity from wherever and whatever. We will never find that change from that side still. And in the same time, if you don't have a opposition, okay, if you don't have an opposition which is matching the governing body, definitely that governing body also will soon find the imbalance. That's why I'm saying, even what number of new phases will come, it is very hard to expect a proper change. And the other thing that you said, 150 new, that I don't know whether he thought of having 150 odd NPP members. No, NPP, I think they will get around 115 to 120.
115 to 120.
Maximum 130. They will never exceed 130. This is sure. They are not going to get more than 130. My prediction is like 115 to 120.
So, in that case, what about the other parties? Let's start with the SLPP, which got about 2.5% in the presidential. What's going to happen in the general election? See, it is very similar which is going to happen to SLPP. I mean, SLP, the future of now, what we are going to expect from SLPP is going to be very similar to what we are going to expect from UNP, from the cylinder. Now, we saw Ranil Wickremesinghe got, you asked me about SLPP, but I will answer from the cylinder, right? Cylinder first.
So, Ranil Wickremesinghe, actually he got 2.2 million, right? Around 22 lakhs votes. Now, this is the time, I mean, this general election is the exact moment where the organizers and the people who supported Ranil Wickremesinghe's thing, like the organizers and all, they will get to know that these votes came for Ranil Wickremesinghe, not because of any other.
So your
and
prediction...
this is the same thing which is going to happen to SLPP. Votes were given to Namal Rajapaksa. That is because of he is a Rajapaksa. The Rajapaksa vote base voted to him. But you don't expect all those who are in SLPP, who are actually being hated by the community, the society, will get the same response which Mahinda Rajapaksa's son got. Even whatever, we might have lots of things to say against Rajapaksas, but there is a community, there is a society, piece of the population where they will give their vote to Rajapaksas. But it is different when it comes to the general election, and also it is the very same with Ranil Wickremesinghe. We saw what those SLPP people who joined Ranil Wickremesinghe, they couldn't bring any votes to RW's vote base. So both, I mean, definitely RW's camp will be shattered. They will be, I mean, it will be a whitewash for them.
Kesarralal, would you agree with that scenario?
as I said before, it's not correct for me to mention numbers. But as I said, there'll be a shift from those parties to the NPP. That is why I feel
Definitely.
it'll be an easy victory for the NPP.
So, from the cylinder and from the SLPP, you expect...
Especially,
Even the SJB, to some degree.
shall I add one thing?
Yes, please.
So, my personal view before the presidential election, I was thinking, and I have said it in many occasions as well, that NPP, Anurakkumara Disanayaka, is the best person to handle the governance crisis of Sri Lanka. And Ranil Wickremesinghe was the person for the economic crisis. So, we had a fear that if Anurakkumara Disanayaka wins, that he will not handle this economic crisis the way Ranil Wickremesinghe handled, and he will take it in another avenue where the country will face lots of troubles. But fortunately for the country, we are seeing Anurakkumara is leading the country, leading the economy of the country the same way, the same path where Ranil Wickremesinghe took it. So, the fear of many people who were like me, who thought that it will be a disaster for the economy if Anurakkumara Disanayaka comes to power, are now feeling a bit comfortable because that Anurakkumara is doing it the way that we expected. So, most of the people who voted Ranil Wickremesinghe in the presidential election have now settled their minds to vote for Anurakkumara Disanayaka, for the NPP in the general election. You know, because anyhow they thought that governance issue is going to be solved by NPP. So, there's no reason for them to not to vote against NPP.
Well, we'll delve deeper into these subjects in a little. Right now, we need to take a short commercial break. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
A trusted place for your fixed deposit. Valuable FD, a symbol of stability.
We live in a world of progress. But what if progress isn't reaching everyone? Millions of Sri Lankans struggle without access to clean water, safe roads and bridges to a better life. But you have reached out. You have touched their lives. Thank you, Sri Lanka, for making Gammadda the most impactful rural development movement in our nation. Gammadda, for the people, by the people.
යාළුවෝ නෙමෙයිනේ භූපතිය. අපි එකතු වෙලා පොදු සන්දානයක් හදමු.
හැබැයි මේ වගේ වැඩ පිළිවෙලකට අපේ විධායක සභාව එකඟ කරගන්න එක නම් පහසු කටයුත්තක් නෙමෙයි.
කියමුද? නෑ මේ ජනරල්
Welcome back to Face with Nadeesha De Silva and Kesarralal Gunasekara, and we are discussing the probable outcome of General Election 2024. Kesarralal, now just before the break we started discussing the governance aspect. Let's look at what's been going on. Are you surprised or happy with the governance issues, the situation that has come about in the last few weeks? Is it any surprise to you What about the anti-corruption side? What's going on?
That will take time, because that's not an issue for the government as such. That is an issue for the agencies who are dealing with that. That will take time. People will always understand it takes time. It's not something that you can show progress overnight. But I'm sure they will be behind it. They will be at it as well. And they need to do that. Because whatever said and done, the wrongdoing, we all need to understand one thing. This is why I say, nobody need to blame the MPP. This is our own seeking. When I say our own seeking, the parties, SLP, SLPP, UNP, SJB, all of us should realize that we created the NPP. We allowed them to come up. Very simple. If we had structured ourselves in such a manner that we delivered results to the country, MP would have been still 2-3. That's all. But then over a period of time, we resorted to so many things, whichever government came in. They were more worried about making money. They were more worried about making commissions, etc. And that went on. There was absolutely no limitation on that, no. They continued and thrived on that. So one day it had to fall, and this is why I say it's going to be a cakewalk at the general election.
Nadeesha, this holding of the NPP to a higher standard when it comes to anti-corruption, governance and so on, is it realistic? Now you spoke about the fact that Sri Lankan society, what it is, and we all know what it is, and the fact that the previous parliaments did come from Sri Lankan society. Now the next parliament, which is likely to be having a majority of NPP members, but those members are also from Sri Lankan society. So are we holding the NPP to an unrealistic stand?
For me personally, I believe that it's an unrealistic stand. Very clearly, I state that. Because what NPP is actually. Now, Kesarralal said that the other parties, they allowed NPP to rise into this position. Otherwise, they were in 3%. So, actually, NPP came to this position mainly because of the Aragale. And Aragale, because of we have to think about the reasons why Aragale came up. Actually, that was the weakness of the previous president, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, his management skills and his administration, everything was below the average and he couldn't manage it. So then came the Aragale. So in Aragale, people wanted that change. Now they started blaming 76, 74 years at that time, like it was all 74 years which was behind, and they were saying no to 25, power beyond the Yavannavar and all those quotations and all. And we know who were behind those lines. We know that from the all 76 years, from 48 to today, we can't say that the country is not developed. The country has been developed a lot. Okay, there were things being done by the previous governments, previous rulers and all. We can't just say that they have all done rubbish. Okay, that is not accepted. But that was what people's mentality, that was how the mentality of the people worked. In a crisis, that's how human nature, humans, they behave, right? And mainly what I think is the Sri Lankan mentality, especially the South Asian mentality, it moves between black and white. We are in a linear thinking pattern. That's binary thinking pattern, we call it. We are take a relationship of a Sri Lankan person usually. It's a love-hate relationship. Either you love the person or you hate the person. sometimes Sri Lankans are not good at choosing. They just reject. They reject one person or one party, and because you reject that, you find the other person. Okay, you're always finding the other, the alternate, right? So that's why they have chosen NPP, not because that they have understood that NPP is capable of doing that or this, and not because of anything, just that hate feeling against all the other parties. So there were nobody to capture that moment. Actually, rather than saying that all the other parties helped NPP to come to this position, I personally believe that the weakness of Sajith Premadasa let this happen. I mean, it can be good or bad, but Anurukumara Dissanayake came to power and all. We are not too early to say whether it's a good choice by the people or not. But if you just say how NPP came to power, it was a weakness of the opposition leader. He was the person who let that happen. The opposition was the weak. Opposition was weak. That's because that is the reason. Because now people were talking against the corruption. People thought that everything happened because of this corruption, because it was the populist court which any opposition could bring up.
Now, just because the president changed and now we have a cabinet of 3, it doesn't mean that the country's corruption has ended or even lessened. You could make the case that the 3 members in the cabinet are not corrupt. Fine. That's, let's take that.
Yeah.
Okay. But within the ministries, the officials, in the departments, the corporations, I mean, I'm sure the corruption continues.
Corruption in Sri Lanka happens in a circle. It's a circle. A corrupted politician, the white collar bandit, and the corrupted government servant. So these 3 makes it happen. That's how it works.
No individual can do it.
Yeah, no individual can do it.
It's a collusion.
Yeah, that wheel has to move. Only if the wheel moves, it will happen. All these 3 together, it has to move as well. One is interdependent on each other.
You're absolutely correct. But now, what I'm wondering, Kesarralal, is, okay, you have this incorruptible cabinet of 3 right now. But after the next general election, in 3 weeks' time, you will have a cabinet of
25.
25.
And 25 deputy ministers.
Exactly. So that's 50 politicians in positions of power. I like to say in office, but the officers bring about a certain amount of power. And the white collar bandits, whom Nadeesha just referred to, will pounce on these 50 through the mechanism of the third party in this whole deal, which is the bureaucrats. So what happens then, Kesarralal?
Naresh, there is always a possibility of certain things taking place, because you've got to understand human frailty is always there. Human frailty is always there. It can surface at any time. Even with the NPP, it can surface. But the question here is, what would the NPP do in a scenario of that nature? Will they take immediate action or not? If they take immediate action, then you realize that they are on the correct path. That is what I feel. And maybe there will be many eyes on them as well, because they have their own cadres looking at so many issues. So it won't be that easy. But as you said, there is always possibility. There is always a possibility.
Well, I think it's rather far-fetched to expect all 50 of these ministers and deputy ministers to be incorruptible. That would be some kind of paradise, a utopia, which we really can't aspire to. So what happens
You
when
want a certain degree of corruption.
No, I don't want corruption. Actually, I want this to be like Singapore, where the cabinet is supposed to be completely above board.
For this to become corrupt-free, it will take a time. It will take some time.
Exactly.
It's not going to be that easy.
So what happens?
But they will start this ball rolling, and they'll carry it forward. It is left for people like us, everybody, to be looking at them and pointing and say, look here, there's something happening. That is what is essential. But I'll tell you something else. There is another danger for the NPP as well. What's that danger? Because everybody who has gone out will be with their daggers drawn. Huh? The slightest mistake, they will pounce like a set of vultures. Slightest mistake, they pounce like a set of vultures. So MPP will have to be mindful of that situation. That will be far worse than previous governments. Here in this government, the quantum of people who will have their eyes open, wide open, with not for the sake of the country, not for the sake of the country, but to demolish them and defeat them. So in that backdrop, I feel NPP should realize that there is this imminent danger as well, and they'll have to take precautionary measures.
But my fear is that once the inevitable corruption comes in, perhaps in a small way, and the allegations, the true allegations come up, my fear is that the government might become defensive and not act against their particular...
Too premature to comment on that. Too premature.
Too premature,
Neeraj,
of course.
Neeraj, I see for the way they are going, they are very hard. They are very hard. They will be very, very, very harsh on their members as well.
But that is what is needed.
That is what is needed.
Yes.
I think they will be very harsh on their members as well.
What do you think, Nadeesha?
Human nature will come to action.
And Sri Lankan nature especially.
Yes.
But we hope...
No, we'll hope for the best. We'll hope for the best. But anyway, now...
But we're hoping for a societal change, huh?
Yeah.
To have a societal change. Now, sometimes we are saying that NPPers are saying that you don't need a strong opposition, you need a proper, you need 2/3 majority to run the country. But in that case, if you actually need to have a proper change, you need a strong opposition. You need a strong opposition, but you need opposition with an ideology. Now, what is lacking in Sri Lankan politics and in Sri Lankan society as well, there's no ideology. NPP, I don't find any ideology behind NPP, but JVP, it has an ideology. As JVP is in the middle, as it's the center, so we can see that ideology in NPP camp. Now, we have a government. In that case, we can say that we have a government with an ideology. But still, the icing of that small center represents the exact same society what we see. Exception in the NPP camp is the JVP cadre. I hope you understand what I am saying. So, if you want to see that change, the system change or the change in the society, the culture of the political cultures change, if you want to see, first if you want to see the political culture change, to be changed, in that case you need a proper opposition which is having a proper ideology, which is against...
But what's going to happen to the opposition? Now we are predicting for general election 2024, where we are predicting the probability of an NPP victory, which means that most of the existing opposition parties will get less seats in Parliament. Maybe some will remain the same. Perhaps UNP will go from one to a few more. But basically, the opposition will not do very well in the next election. That's what it looks like right now to everybody. But what happens after the general election? how does the opposition dust itself off and get back on its feet? What does it need to do?
See, the opposition, what we will see after the election, now I told myself that NPP will get around 115 to 120. So that means the opposition will be having, that is also, they will also get something around 100 to 150, 110. No? Okay. So number wise, that is also a strong opposition, but it will not do the thing.
But it's also splintered.
It is also splittered, and none of these parties are having an ideology which can compete against the ideology which JVP does. So that has to be formed from somewhere, from the dust, from the scratch. You have to get it done. So we don't know whom will come and do it. Okay, anyway, that has to happen. If it is not going to happen, that will be a disaster to the country. So this is where you should never have a party state. A one party government should not be there. Even if you have 110 members in the other side who are fighting with each other, who has different opinions, but at least you have to be agreed to one set of values.
Kesarralal, what do you think of the opposition's future after the next election?
Well, I feel that the opposition also will consist of new members, new faces. So both the government and the opposition will be on par. I for one feel that there will be more members on the government side. Dinesh mentioned a number. I feel it will be more, because the flow from the opposition, from this presidential election to the MPP will be greater, I feel. So in that backdrop, they will have more. But the question here is not any of those things as to what changes they are going to bring in. I told you that this is a cultural change. They have introduced a new culture. They move forward. There are so many things that have to be done. Acts need to be amended. Acts which have not been amended for donkey's years need to be amended. All those things they can attend to, because you know why? There won't be problems in Parliament. You wait and see. This Parliament will have a very, very clear way of moving forward. It doesn't mean that they'll be doing wrong things, but it'll be much more clearer, and they'll do much more better work than previous parliaments. If you observe previous parliaments, if you have watched day by day what they have done hardly anything. They have been shouting at each other, fighting against each other, that's all. But this new parliament will have to concentrate on much more work, I feel, because they'll be forced to. Most of them will be new, and they'll have to do that. That's all.
So you see a possible resurgence of the opposition after the general election.
Yeah.
On the backs of their new members.
Correct.
Interesting. And what about those 58 plus former MPs who have stepped back? Is it the end of the road for them? Is it curtains?
It's not correct for me to mention any of those things,
well,
but I feel that they will always want to come back. I think the situation, the culture prevented them from coming in. The culture that the NPP introduced at the last presidential election prevented them from entering the fray. That itself is a great victory for the MPP, yeah? And that it's a great victory for the country.
Nadeesha, do our old politicians go away, or will they be lurking in the shadows?
See, as he said that they never wanted to go away. Until their death, they would love to be there. That's it. But what happened, as he said correctly, now they saw what is going to happen to them if they contest in this election. You know, Sri Lankan people, not only Sri Lankan people, this is what happens to most of the, if you just search about how South Asian elections work, this happens everywhere. They hate the rejection. what they are calculating right now, they are assessing the size of their rejection. If they contest in this election, they will be rejected, like they won't be able to come back again. But what they are doing is they are just taking a step back and seeing what is going to happen in the next few years. So they definitely will have their eyes on the next parliament for sure.
Interesting thoughts indeed. Quite a lot of predictions from both you gentlemen this evening. And you have an excellent record of in the past of predicting our elections.
I said at the last program before the elections, I said they're going to, people of this country are going to reset the button, and that is exactly what happened.
And I'm afraid on that note we are out of time. My thanks to Mr. Kesarralal Gunasekara and Mr. Nadeesha De Silva for their expert comments this evening. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you
very much, Naresh.
And thank you to you at home for watching. Don't go away, the news is coming up next. Have a good evening.